There are 21 models for the work that's here, and the show is divided into two parts. For this show I've done Living Legends, who are 6 famous people who all achieved in different areas. I've also cast the hands of 10 men and women for a project called Lest We Forget, and they're all people who have served in different wars since the First World War. I started a project 3 years ago, and then it became very obvious that interest in the military was growing. When I started, nobody was particularly interested in the project, and galleries that I approached about it weren't keen on showing it. The British public on the whole think about the First and Second World War. When we talk about, think about war, Britain at war, we think of First, Second World War, the one we're in at the moment, and we're a little bit fuzzy in our memory of what's happened in between. And I wanted to, there's a long way to go on this project because I've only covered 10 wars.
Well, anyone that's met Louise will realise what an enthusiastic, inspirational person that she is. So I think although I may have been labelled as the inspiration, actually it's her experience as being part of a family that's got service person in it that's been the background and the inspiration to going through. So when she came up with the idea, and it definitely was her idea, she quickly drew me into the whole thing, and the idea took root from there. And I really like the idea of her trying to do something that would identify servicemen from other than the major wars that everyone knows about, and trying to recognise that, because it's a sad fact of our history that, for instance, in the 20th century there was only 1 year where there wasn't a British serviceman killed in operations. So there are all of the time running in the background military operations that are going on. So we then started looking to see if we could identify people, mainly of course they are people that I knew, that were involved in different operations. So the plaques represent a variety of operations that I hope won't be forgotten, but actually will fall out of people's memory as the smaller wars when they concentrate on the larger ones. The operation that I picked was Op Palatine, which was one of the operations in the 1990s where the British forces were involved in former Yugoslavia. And for me, it was my first true war, going out and seeing the operations and the medical services dealing and managing with both our own patients and also the casualties from the war from the civilian population as well. It's been very interesting to look at that and feel and see that I don't know that I'm allowed to touch it. So to feel that there's something that I can relate to for the future. One of the things, we grew up on the Isle of Wight, and going and visit Osborne House, one of the most telling things in a cabinet are casts of Queen Victoria's family, of hand and feet casts of her children, and you can look at those and it really takes you like a time warp back to the time. So I'm pleased to have been part of her massive art set up.
I was introduced to Louise through her brother John. John and I served together for 20 years. We met up in Liverpool and we did a cast of the hand, which took probably about 30 minutes in total. And then there's been the evolution there, passing stories, and actually Louise managed to capture the very essence of what what I was trying to describe to her very quickly.
Apparently it's going to last for 3,000 years.
Yeah, 3,000 years is a long time, but I think it's a very reflective piece, and I think whoever comes to view the piece will get a very different feel for it than I do. It's quite personal to me, and for me it captures everything that I felt during those 2 tours. There are 2 very different tours. The British forces in former Yugoslavia were there under Op Resolute and under Op Grapple, and under one was very much under the UN, auspices of the UN, and under the second was under NATO. The bird on the hand for me is really reflective of the fact that when we went first into Sipovo, there was very little wildlife. It had been ravaged, ethnically cleansed, and we were still seeing burnt out houses at the time.
I looked at it, my mum looked at it and she said, "Oh, I just know it's your hand." and that was just the initial cast, and I think it's the nails, clearly.
Do you let me know how you feel about the piece? Like, what does it mean to you?
Wow, I'm still trying to figure out what it means to me. I just think it's weird, you know, like lest we forget the whole sort of living legends. It said I'm not a living legend, I'm just a person who was just fortunate enough to join the army and get the opportunity to go to all these conflicts and do my bit, which is look after sick patients. And so, lovely, really nice, but there's loads of other people she could have chosen. And when I die and I donate my medals to my museum, they can have that as well, because it'll associate my medals with everything to be proper history. Of course, that's if I'm important enough.
Joined the army in 2001. I joined the Household Cavalry Mounted Regiment. I done 4 years up in London, and then I moved to Windsor, and I went to Iraq in 2007, Afghan in 2008, and through till 11. So it worked out 8, 9, 10 and 11 throughout. For me, my hand was quite a big piece, because we took casualties on our second tour of Afghanistan, and one of the young lads who was just turned 21 had 10 days before coming home roughly, IED blew him up. So the big point was to get the Jackal, the vehicle we were in, and the equipment, just to show like the aftermath of what war can really do. The whole idea was to show the equipment. So if you work from right to left, this is like the communications. So we're inside the tank, the scimitar tank we use. This is the head kit. So this is the radio set with the helmet. And then obviously this side was so you could see my face. Then if you look just below the nose, on a scimitar tank we have a Radin cannon, which fires a 30mm round, can fire up to 6 rounds automatic. So this is the barrel of the cannon. And then this part here near the chin is what we call the bar armour, and that was the stuff to stop small arms and RPG fire. And then this side was to show the aftermath, so the damage to the vehicles and the Jackal and the scimitar. It's unique really, isn't it? Just to think 3,000 years time people will still understand what we went through and why we do it, and hopefully by that stage there's no need to go to war anymore.
Well, I was a young man at the time in the Royal Navy. I'd been in the Royal Navy about 18 months, and the ship I was on was HMS Dido. She was in Oslo. It was about 4 weeks before Christmas, in fact almost 40 years ago to the day. And we'd picked up a net on the starboard screw of the ship as we'd gone through the Norwegian field, and we had to send a diver down to free the net. Unfortunately there was an emergency signal given by the diver that was clearing the net, and I was ordered by the officer in charge to go in and get him. So when I got down there under the ship, he was tangled in the net, unconscious, with his breathing apparatus off, and I cut him free and took him back to the surface and injected adrenaline into his heart and saved his life. So some of the funds from the exhibition go to the Royal British Legion, which obviously we're in this country very fond of supporting, and it's a fine thing to support, so we're all very pleased to be involved just from that point of view alone. For me personally, it's something that as things go on, it's 40 years ago, it's a long time ago, and it's something that you cease to think about when things happen in your life, that sort of time ago. And it's brought back a lot of things thinking about that particular instance, which I thought were long since forgotten.
I'm the only body cast sculptor who produces work that's based on the person themselves, that it has their biographical details or their narrative, and I work very closely in conjunction with the people I cast. So if I cast you, would it be your head, your body, or some part of? And then what would you want on it? So it comes from you. I mean, I'm the designer, I put it together and I make it. But my job, I think, is to give people an opportunity to say things about themselves that maybe are unexpected.